Welcome back to Stories Sustain Us, the podcast where we delve into the incredible journeys of those making a lasting impact on our world. I'm your host, Stephen Schauer, and today we have a truly powerful story to share with you. My guest is Roy Hudgens, an interior designer, a passionate tennis player, and a survivor of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Living with HIV for 39 years, Roy has navigated a journey filled with challenges, resilience, and ultimately, hope. During the height of the AIDS pandemic, the stigma and discrimination were overwhelming, compounded by the lack of medical knowledge and treatment options. But through it all, Roy found strength in the support of the HIV/AIDS community and compassionate healthcare professionals who provided the care and understanding he needed. In this episode, we'll explore the holistic impact of living with HIV/AIDS on mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Roy shares how daily mindfulness practices, physical fitness, and a deep appreciation for the present moment have been essential in maintaining his health and happiness. We'll also discuss the advancements in medication that have significantly improved the quality of life for those living with HIV/AIDS, while recognizing there's still a critical need for awareness, support, and advocacy to ensure access to affordable treatments worldwide. Now, I've known Roy for close to 20 years. I'm truly grateful for his willingness to come on the show and share such a deeply personal journey with us. When I asked him to do the show, he said yes before I could even finish the question. That's just the kind of guy he is. His openness, vulnerability, and courage is really powerful to witness, so you're going to want to check it out in this episode. Now, in case you're wondering, what does this have to do with sustainability? Let me tell you. In a word, everything. But just to expand on that just a little bit more, there are 17 global sustainable development goals agreed on by the nations of the world through the United Nations. Goal number 3 is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Going a bit deeper into that goal, there's a target to end by 2030 the epidemics of AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and neglected tropical diseases, and combat hepatitis, waterborne diseases, and other communicable diseases. Roy's story ties on a very personal level to the global sustainability goal of ending the HIV/AIDS pandemic by 2030. His story is one of resilience, joy, and advocacy, a reminder that embracing life's simple pleasures can lead to profound well-being. So sit back and join us as we dive into Roy Hudgens' incredible journey on this episode of Stories Sustain Us, where we are inspiring action through the power of storytelling. All right. Well, Roy, welcome to Stories Sustain Us. How you doing, my friend? Good to see you.
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, just did the introduction, so everybody's starting to get to know you, but thank you for kind of joining me on I don't know, kind of what I'm seeing as a special episode kind of thing. So I'm talking to you about your personal life experience with what I think is a very important topic, and it's not necessarily, talking to a researcher or scientist or someone who's working in a field. I'm talking to someone who's lived on the front lines of the AIDS crisis the AIDS pandemic that the world is still in. 40 years later or so, we're still in this pandemic. So I appreciate you very much, sharing your personal journey and story as part of this kind of episode of Stories Sustain Us. So thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Congratulations on your podcast.
Yeah, I'm having fun with it. So getting to chat with old friends like you and new people all around the world. It's been a blast. So it's been fun. So thank you. Appreciate it. So so we're going to jump into your story, Roy. Tell me Roy's story. How you doing? What's childhood like, and what's life been like for you?
Well, first of all, I'm great. Thank you. Living in LA, standing in my kitchen with a view of the Hollywood Hills in my humble little apartment, and I'm loving life. So that's who I am right now.
That's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, I love it here. Well, you're in the same climate, so
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me and talking about the AIDS epidemic and the current state and the future of it. But I have been HIV positive for 29 years, I think. I think it's 29 or 30. I'm not sure. I can't remember. Um, but yeah, so I'm a military brat.
Yeah.
I'm number six of seven children, six boys and one girl. And we moved almost twice a year. We lived in 22 different states, and I was born in Turkey.
Wow.
So yeah, and I I guess it was, I don't know, remember when, but I definitely knew I was different, special,
Yeah.
and it was not okay to be gay. And my family were military,
Yeah.
and so there was just that. But I guess it was, I think I was 19 years old. I went to a gay bar, and I saw this guy, and he looked like Ricky Ricardo. And he had slick back hair, and he was very handsome,
Yeah.
and he came up and said hi to me, and I was like, no way. Anyways, that's
And
kind of how
this
it happened.
was where was this?
San Antonio at the
San
Paper
Antonio.
Moon.
Yeah.
First thought was someone like that would never like me. Next thing you know, he's like, "Hello." So we never left each other's side
Yeah.
until he died of AIDS 10 years later from
Yeah.
when we met. But
When did you said you were 19? When
he
was
died
that?
in he died in 1995.
95. So you met in the mid
No,
80s?
yeah, I was 19 in 86,
Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we started a life together, and it was it's just tough back then to be out or um, but what happened was we started had a successful business, and we were rocking along, and our nieces and nephews spent holidays at our home. So there was a little bit of like, don't talk about it, but everyone loved to be around us.
Yeah. Both families. It was kind of a
Yeah,
hush
yeah,
secret. Yeah.
yeah, there's a little bit.
Yeah. That's hard, man.
But so one day he got sick. He got a super high temperature, and he his doctor tested him, and he had full blown AIDS.
Yeah.
And I tested positive for AIDS, and so we didn't know anything. Like
And
nobody.
when was this? It was
This
early
was like
90s at this point?
early '90s, early '90s.
Yeah.
We had no idea. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know you could drink a Coke after someone with AIDS. Like I had no idea.
Yeah.
And but I will say our families rallied around us. But so here's the thing. Back then, there was no drugs for it until AZT came out.
Yeah.
And like for example, so what it was like was this: Rico got everything you could get without an immune system. He got a parasite in his brain. He went completely blind. He had um, his bones were rotting, and they would send him home from the hospital with open wounds to heal, with 6 feet of packing that I had to dress him
Oh,
with.
wow.
They sent a blind lady over to teach us how to be blind. And it was just one thing after another.
Yeah.
Um, Early on, when we were first diagnosed, I was the best man at my brother's wedding, and my sister was coming to get Rico and I to take us to Louisiana, but I had a tooth that needed pulled, and to get she called around to dentists in San Antonio to get my tooth pulled, and um, it took her 14 dentists to find one that would pull my tooth because I
No
was,
one would work on you.
yeah. And so she took me to this dentist. She's holding my arm. We walk in, and the whole staff is lining the walls in full Kim gear. And I remember walking down the hall thinking, I do not belong on. That's the first time I didn't believe I belonged on this planet. And
Yeah.
so that was one of like so many things that trying to be trying to accept that he's dying and I most likely will, and be as kind and loving and supportive at the same time, not being recognized as a human being was traumatic,
No
with
doubt.
stuff that I'm still working on,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
doing good. Took a while.
Yeah.
Um, One time he was in the hospital with that surgery that he had, and I was in there waiting for him to wake up from the surgery, and this mean ass woman, can we cuss on this?
Yeah, of course.
Anyways,
Say whatever you want.
this nurse came in, and
If you're hearing the
she
story, I might say some curse words.
well, she was like I mean, those horror stories that you hear, she's like, "You're not immediate family. Get the fuck out of here." She threw me out of the room. Stuff like that, and it was just constant.
Yeah.
Um, Rico's family was very Catholic, and so he wanted to be Catholic and still be gay and go to heaven because he knew he was
Yeah.
dying.
Yeah.
So we took him to this big, giant church. Have the TV thing. I don't want to say it. I'll
Yeah.
say it. It was Cornerstone.
Okay.
We took him
That
there.
is, yeah, that is
We
a
went
big
there.
kind of mega church
It is,
in
and he
San
wanted to be
Antonio for those
saved.
who don't know, right?
Yeah, and so you have to pay them a check to be dunked in the pool and saved. And so I wrote the check. They took him to dunk him, and the assistant to Pastor Hagee came out and said, "What you boys are doing is a thorn in God's eye. You're going to hell." Like, and I
Haggy
was
directly told you
no,
that?
his
His
minion,
assistant?
his
Yeah.
little deacon. Yeah, and I
Ah,
remember sitting in. I was looking in a locker room, and I was like, it felt like I was walking down the hall as a dentist. Like, what? I just wrote you a check. Like,
yeah.
are you gonna keep my money?
For,
But I never told Rico that. I didn't.
compassion and, yeah.
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 So, and
Yeah.
there's so many stories
I'm
like
sorry,
that.
Roy.
Well, there's more to later on now, currently in my life. Like, those things were gifts, and it took me a long time and a lot of trauma to get to where I'm at with that. But
Yeah.
it's just food for my ego for me to be like a victim. So
Sure.
there's
I
a whole other
appreciate,
story
yeah.
into that. But at the time, I
Yeah.
felt like I didn't belong here. I wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
And so you kept your head down and just tried to
Well, you
stay
were
invisible.
ostracized. I mean, you,
Yeah.
to say the least. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So that feeling of not belonging, that was intentional. I mean, that was
Right.
being told something like that. That is not kindness. That's not compassion. That is, the opposite of that. So my heart
Yeah.
goes out to you. I know some of these stories because you and I know each other, but it's
Hmm.
still, thank you for your vulnerability and honesty and
Sure.
sharing with some of those hard, tragic stories. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
please go
Yeah. It was
on.
a.
Where do you want to pick up?
Well, it
I
was a
guess.
difference. Well, here's the thing about
Yeah.
sustainability and about medications and what we can do to keep people from dying. And so
Yeah.
back then it was different. Like, he was given AZT. And so AZT was described to us by our doctor as if you have a flower bed, and in that flower bed is a little weed, and you take this gigantic weed eater to get that weed, you're going to you mutilate a bunch of
You're gonna
flowers.
mow
That's
everything
what
else down.
that's what
Yeah.
AZT was. It was like coming through. And
Yeah.
so when the cocktail finally came out, the combination, it was like a little handheld weed eater. And so Rico
Yeah.
was short 8 months before the cocktail came out before he died.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm alive.
Mm.
But before that, he was on a lot of test drugs. We were on everything possible. Like, he had thrush, which was like a foaming of the mouth, and
Mm-hmm.
he's the reason that there is a um, yeast infections for women. They take itraconazole and itraconazole. He was the reason they have that drug. He was one of the people that was tested. So there's a lot of things that came out. Like, I take a pill once a day to that gives me the fullness of life. I
Mm-hmm.
play tennis. I ride my bike to work. I play big boy tennis. I hit with the college kids. It's because of that little pill that I got to take because of people like Rico that,
Yeah.
took. So yeah, that's what it
Did you
was like.
find that the medical community, was obviously with the dentist experience didn't sound at all that helpful, but were you finding more help amongst the MDs and the doctors or was it kind of
No,
some didn't
no.
know what to do with you because it was still so novel
It,
and
yeah.
scary, I'm sure for everybody, but or how was your experience obviously testing all of these things and going through all of that? Was there any compassion in that process, or were you just kind of like,
Yes.
here, try this and call
No,
me later? Or what?
yes.
Yeah.
It was. it was inside the community of doctors and nurses that were HIV and AIDS doctors and
Yeah.
nurses in the clinics. Amazing. I mean, you're in the, it's a different time. You're sitting in the waiting room with a bunch of people that are they're dying. They have
Yeah.
lesions and they're wasting, and you're like, oh my God, like this is what I have to look forward to. So it was just awful. It was an
Yeah.
awful, awful experience. I remember taking Rico one time to so many doctor's appointments. And
Yeah.
one time I was taking him down to the car and he just started bawling. And I like, what's wrong? And he's like, I don't want to go to the waiting room. It's just so awful.
Yeah.
So, but yes, the nurses and doctors were amazing. They
That's
were
good.
like touching you. They would touch you and love you, and they weren't
Yeah.
afraid of getting AIDS by being next to you. So a huge compassion and love from the AIDS Foundation, the clinics, the regular hospitals. If it wasn't an AIDS ward, they
Yeah.
were awful. Well, they were scared.
They were scared.
Just
Sure.
like the
Sure.
dentist office, they were scared.
Right.
They did say yes, and he pulled my tooth.
Yeah.
There's plastic on the wall, but he pulled that fucker. So,
Wow.
here I am, 19-ish when I was infected,
Yeah.
and I'm 58, and so, well, 58 and a half. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, it was, so with that, I was thinking about what that does to people like me that are in their 50s or 60s that survived the AIDS epidemic. I'm healthy. I somehow got into tennis right about 1999, and I just ran
Yeah.
for 20 years, 25 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm fit. And because the AIDS virus takes a toll on you. When I was taking medications, the cocktail,
Yeah.
it would you have to keep testing your T cells back then because the virus mutates and the medication is no longer effective, so you have to switch up the cocktail. There were like 12 sequences of the cocktail that they could switch it around to trick the virus. I had gone to the last one. Like I was, it would be okay for a year or two, and then my T cells would drop, and it's like we got to switch the cocktail up. And so I remember one time my doctor's like, "This is the last combination for you." Okay, and then
So how long did that go on?
for
You know.
until I got the single pill, which was probably maybe 10 years ago
Yeah.
ish.
So almost 20 years of
I was racing against the
changing
clock. Yeah.
the cocktails,
Mm-hmm.
constantly test. How often were you testing?
So at the beginning,
Quarterly, every other year.
oh
I mean,
no,
every 6 months, every year. How often were you
right.
testing?
In the beginning, weekly,
Oh
then
yeah,
every
yeah,
2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and then got to a
yeah,
year, and now it's a year. I just got my test like the other day,
yeah,
and it's 100% undetectable. Like it's not there. It's
yeah.
there, but it's not there.
Sure, sure.
So, but back then we couldn't eat raw eggs. You couldn't eat, like I couldn't have Caesar dressing,
Why?
because you can't afford to get sick when you have no immune system or a weak immune system.
Oh wow.
Like tuberculosis is like the number one killer of people living with AIDS because their immune system is so
I wouldn't
low.
have never thought about raw eggs or Caesar dressing or other things
Yeah,
that could attack your immune system, your
yeah.
weakened body. Wow.
I remember I was with my friends. We were in Austin at this concert, and this guy I didn't date like at all. I was so traumatized by the whole thing. I went
After
on a couple
Rico's
of dates.
passing.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it was tough.
yeah,
But I went on a date with this guy, and I went over. We were going to hang out, and I was going to stay in Austin. I had my current drug. We had to have refrigerated. I was like, tell my friend, I'm like, how do I fucking tell this guy, hey, I got to put my AIDS medicine in your fridge. Um, yeah, that's what it's like.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you again for kind of pulling back the curtain and sharing some of the, like, again, the recognizing some of the privilege of my life of not knowing what that's like.
Yeah.
and again, not thinking for a minute like, oh, you can't have eggs.
Yeah.
That never. Yeah.
Sunburns
So
also. Sunburns will fuck you up if your immune system's. I didn't know
yeah,
that until I knew
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Sunscreen.
Yeah.
So,
So did you have scares along the way during that
yeah,
period?
I did. I
Your own
remember
personal kind of moments of
illness.
yeah.
Yeah, so you're sober.
Yes.
I'm sober. In
Yes.
1999, I got sober. Rico died in 1995. And
Yeah.
I went to the doctor, and she's like, "Well, you have the same strands of the virus in you, so you're gonna go blind, get a parasite in your brain, and you'll be probably dead in a year." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I just went and got high
Yeah.
um, until 1999,
Yeah.
and I was alive. I got sober, at the same place I think you did, Club 12.
Yeah. That
Uh,
is where I got sober. That's actually where I think I met you the first time,
yeah.
a few years into my sobriety journey.
So I got sober. I had 5 T cells. I was very sick. I ended up in the hospital, and I had PCP pneumonia, which is one of the it's called the ARC, age related complications,
Yeah.
and you get like the lesions or pneumonia or brain stuff, parasite in your brain, like anything. Anyone
Yeah.
can get them without an immune system, and so I was in the ARC, which is usually see ya,
Yeah.
and again they're like, "Yeah, but you're to live." But I was in the isolation ward at University Hospital,
Hmm.
and I was masked. Or no, I was in the isolation ward, and then all of a sudden I hear all this noise. It was Joe McFadden and like 10 people from the club. They came in like, "We're gonna have a meeting in your room," and they all were wearing masks because I was the one that was just
Yeah. You were
needing
the one at
protection.
risk. Right.
And
Right.
Joe was like, "What the fuck?" He took a mask and put it on me, and they all took off all their masks. It's so great, but Joe.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I had a couple of times where I was sick. Before I got sober in 1999, I remember getting a scratch and it not healing, fingernails not growing, kind of feeling like I was just rotting. And
Yeah.
then when I got sober and went to the doctor, I had like 5 T cells, so I was dying,
You were.
but I
Yeah.
was sane.
Jeez Louise. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Thank
So
thank you also for your vulnerability of telling that part of your story. I think, I shared a few episodes ago that I'm in recovery and it's a freaking miracle. And, you know, I'm grateful for every moment of it and wouldn't have met, beautiful people like you otherwise as well. So, yeah. So you eventually get through the, 18, 20 years of having to do the cocktail and
and
2010,
then
2014, somewhere in there, you get to the single
yeah,
dose.
I
Tell me
think
what's that like?
Truvada came out for us that were infected, that were
Yeah,
positive, with a cocktail. And now it's the one that you take if you're not infected to keep you from getting AIDS. It's so crazy. And
yeah,
now I take Biktarvy, and so it's one pill. But see, it's not just the Biktarvy. It's like it's mental, it's physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual.
yeah,
Like I know people same length of time. I know people that didn't make it, but I know people with the same length of time living with HIV and AIDS that look sickly and old because one, it eats at your muscles, and like you have to try. You
yeah.
have to try to stay
You
ahead
have
of
to
it.
work every day. Yeah,
Yeah, and so fortunately, I just was hiding on the tennis court.
yeah,
I would only play singles, but I played like 8 hours a week.
yeah,
So I was isolating on the tennis court, which helped me physically.
yeah,
So I'm fit and healthy because I did a lot of fitness stuff, just, you know.
yeah,
But there's a lot of people that aren't, and I'm grateful that I stayed ahead of the disease because once you get weak, it's gonna it affects you. There's so many people that are still dying from it,
yeah,
and you just don't think about it because it's not in the news.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I saw a report, I mentioned to you and at the introduction talked about that new report that came out from UNAIDS. This is, we're mid-September now with this release, but the report came out in the middle of July a few months ago, and a horrible statistic of every minute somewhere around the globe there's someone dying of AIDS related complications. So there's miracle stories such as yours, but there's certainly pretty dramatic inequalities in other places around the world, and in those places there's inequalities between who has access, men or women, or what type of work they do, if they're in the sex trade or in some of these places. I mean, it's just, there's still a lot that we collectively as humanity needs to do, in my opinion, to help get this pandemic eradicated, if certainly not more manageable around the world, like you're managing your disease. So
I wish
so what
I wish we could see a component of some component of the medication, but like with early detection, with like meditation, mindfulness. That's what changed for me. Yes, I
yeah
take that pill every day and I'm grateful for it. I'm not going to not take it.
yeah
But the quality of my life has gotten so much better learning how to meditate, learning how to be of service.
yeah
It pays so heavy uh, when you practice mindfulness, service. Yeah,
tell me
especially for those that have been traumatized, like that stuff. I thought it was fine. I was living my life. Everything was great, and then it wasn't. I had a
yeah
wise friend that said, "Roy, everything buried is alive and growing, and it's gonna come out someday. Just not sure when or where." It came
yeah
out.
yeah
So I've done all the Eckhart Tolle, Science of Mind, Emmett Fox, Sadhguru. I'm just got my completion, my Isha. The one thing for me that's changed me the most, was being of service in recovery. And I'm currently doing the work with Byron Katie.
yeah
Fortunately, she lives in California, and so I went to a retreat. It's just 4 questions, but all it does is it's like hand surgery versus putting cream on your hand. Like you question your thoughts. Is it true? You absolutely know it's true. Who would you be without that thought? How do you treat yourself and others when you believe that thought? What addictions do you participate in? And then you turn it around. Like, so I'll give you a little quick example.
yeah
I had,
please
okay, so actually went to Ojai because my boyfriend Kent, he's like really involved in Byron Katie, and I'm like, okay, I'll go. So we go, and there's a couple hundred people at these events. I didn't know, but at the end of each event, she pulls someone from the audience and puts them on stage, and she does the work with you. And she
yeah
pulled me, she picked me, like,
right
out
on
of, so I was doing the work on my form, I was doing the work on, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but during when Rico and I were together, there were family members that I felt didn't treat me right, and
yeah yeah
and I felt like they wanted me to die and not him, and I I carried that with me, like, just, I don't know if it was true, but that's what my brain told me.
that's
So she
sure
had me do the work on that, and it took, she let me come to my own answers without her putting words in my mouth. And it turned out it wasn't true. And she was a beautiful mother to him and me. And
yeah
she managed to bring this large Hispanic Catholic family into our home and let him be Catholic and gay and die of AIDS, believing he would go to heaven.
yeah
Like, she gave that to him.
yeah
Oh, sorry.
no, that's friggin' beautiful, man. I mean, that's thank you for sharing that. I'm
Right.
tearing up with you, man.
I didn't know that. It came out on stage. I'm like, holy fuck.
Yeah,
And so I sent her a card and thanked her. And so that's what the work is doing for me. You question your thoughts, ask them if they're true, turn it around, and shabam.
yeah,
It's the same with anyone. I had a sponsor that would tell me the same thing in different words. So whatever a spirituality, guru, process, grass under your feet, whatever gets you there, like that's the mana of life, including the medication.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take your meds.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So so on a daily basis, you take your pill. And
I
it sounds
do.
like on a daily basis, you do your mindfulness meditation routines, you do your exercise, your
Right.
physical fit, you
Which
eat
includes
well.
riding my bike to work and taking my socks and shoes off in the grass whenever I can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
feeling the earth
Hmm.
underneath you. Yeah, that's important. I like doing that too when I can. I don't do that as often as you. Certainly not as often as I would like.
Never
But
did
it just feels
before.
good when you do it, right? You just like
Yeah.
connected. You feel connected to something bigger than yourself when you're touching the earth. At least for
Hmm.
me, I do a lot of hiking here in the Pacific Northwest, and I am literally a tree hugger. When I'm in the middle of
It's
the woods, I
crazy.
will. There's these giant, amazing, beautiful trees. I will just go put my hands on it, and sometimes I'll hug it, but I'll just touch it. I'll just hold it, just
Yeah.
feel it. And there's like, it's just something. You're just connected to something that you're connected to the earth. You're connected to life, a life force. I think it's beautiful. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So you do all these things every day to kind of maintain your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual
Right.
well-being. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say. It's a daily deal. You don't get vacations from taking care of yourself because just like our sobriety, we don't get to take vacation from that because
Right.
that mental illness is still there and ready to
Yeah.
flare back up. You have to take all these other kind of daily steps to maintain your physical health as well
Hmm.
because of the virus that's in your body. Is that kind of what I'm hearing
Yeah.
correctly?
Hmm.
Yeah. Which taking in a hole is leaving you as a pretty healthy 58-year-old man.
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get the Rona for 2 years and made fun of all my friends. And then I got it. I couldn't even see. I was so sick. But yeah, so I'm pretty
Yeah.
healthy. I got the Rona though.
Yeah. So things like that, though, common colds,
If
the
you're
coronavirus, flu, are you still at a heightened risk, or because
so
your T cells are doing so well and the medication has it as barely acknowledgeable, you're able to maintain your health through those types of illnesses? Like I got the coronavirus as well, a year and a half ago, and it knocked me out for a week. I mean, I was down and out for a week. But I also wasn't too worried that I wasn't going to recover. I mean, so
sure.
do you face those types of things differently?
Well, so first of all, it's not T cells anymore. Somewhere along the way, 10, 15, 20, I don't know when it shifted, but now they base it on your viral load.
Okay.
So anything under 200 is like undetectable or is like good. And then like I am zero, I'm undetectable. And so it used to be T cells, but now it's like your viral load. How many viruses are in your body? And so like someone who's like full blown AIDS has hundreds of thousands of viral load.
Okay.
So I don't know if I know the answer to that because I'm always cautious. I think I'm okay because I'm undetectable, but my doctor says, well, it's there, but it's not there. So basically, they can't get a reading on it, and I'm not a doctor, but they
Right.
can't see it. They can't get a reading on it, so it's undetectable. So I don't know if I get some crazy illness that I'm not going to recover. I think I'm normal,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I mean, I've gotten colds and stuff, so I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Uh, yeah.
Right on. Well, so where do we go from here, Roy? I mean, what's life like for you now in Los Angeles? From what I know of it, it sounds like you're living a pretty amazing life. So, I mean, is that what's happening?
Yeah, yes, was working on,
Yeah.
recovery and the crazies. But yes, so I spent a lot of my life, one in shame, but also like waiting
Yeah.
for it to happen. Wait, I have this cute apartment. It's a studio that's like adorable, and I have a great view. I ride my bike to work, but I had for a while there, I was seeing myself in a house with Kent and a yard and dogs, and I was like living in that house, and I was not being happy where I'm at, and
Yeah.
so I just thought, I did some work on it, and I was like, wait, why not just start living where I'm at and see how that goes? And so I've been started doing puzzles, and like I'm hanging some pots and pans over the stove, like I live here, like I'm gonna live here forever. It helps me stay present. And so, when you do that, maybe my house is around the corner. So, but I do love it here. I'm an interior designer. I actually have a huge penthouse project in Texas I've been working on for 2 years, so I go back there like often. And then I design custom saunas for the celebrities, and sell hot tubs here. So yeah, I have a good life. I have a great
Yeah.
schedule. Um, yeah, I get to meet customers and give service, and I'm I skip when I walk. Sometimes it's like bananas. So there's something about LA. When I got here, it was like a living treatment center. They have 30-foot hedges. Like everything in Texas is the succulents are fake. They're real here because it's like tropical,
Yeah.
subtropical. So like even the crappy areas of town have amazing landscaping because it's like an island.
Yeah.
So that helps. Like you said when you were hiking, like there's so many beautiful plants and trees that everywhere you walk. Yeah, I feel like I'm on vacation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's kind of how I feel living here and walking the neighborhood. It's a very walkable
well,
neighborhood, and it's just full of beautiful flowers that bloom all year round, most part, except for winter, but it's still just
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
So yeah, I'm in love also.
Nice.
Yeah,
That is a good
didn't
thing.
didn't. Oh my God. Um, Never was I ever gonna risk opening my heart up. Uh,
Yeah.
it just shut down on its own, a concrete wall over it. I was like, I didn't even
Yeah.
try. And Rico had died at Christmas, and
Yeah.
I had the house all decorated in advance for him, and he never came home from the hospital, and I never
Mm.
celebrated Christmas again. But it wasn't even intentional. I just deleted it. And so I put my first Christmas tree up 28 years last year.
Yeah. I remember you sent me
Uh,
the pictures of it. I was so happy for you. I was like, that's just so
Amazing.
exciting. Yeah.
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 Right on.
So,
Well, and I'm happy for you that you're, dipping your toe back into the relationship pool, and that's
yeah.
important, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're social creatures. We're supposed to be, with other people and in connection and relationship. So that's a testament to, like you said, all the work you've done on
Yeah.
addressing some of those traumatic things that have happened to you in your life. So you are, for me, I appreciate, we share gratitudes almost every day. That's one of our, ways that we're connected and get to know what's going on with each other's life, is we'll send a little text to each other about what we're grateful for today. And I always appreciate reading what you share, because it's,
Thank you.
I find you to be, just an amazing human being and very inspirational.
Thank you.
Couldn't be more grateful to know you, call you a friend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You started that. Do you remember? I
I,
was
I
struggling in San
yeah.
Antonio 7 years ago,
Yeah.
6 years ago, and you called me and said, "So this is what you're going to do. You're going to start making a gratitude list every day, and you're going to send it to me. Oh, and you're going to meet me for lunch at the Pearl on Tuesday." I was like,
Yeah.
"Yes, sir." And so we've been doing it almost every day.
Yeah, yeah, it helps me out. I'm glad it
Yeah.
helps you out, but it helps me out too. So gratitude's a superpower, man. So, well, Roy, what is there anything else that you want to touch on with regards to your personal story? You've shared, a lot, and I'm so grateful for how open and honest you've been with your experience with HIV/AIDS, and I'm immensely grateful for what you've shared today. Is there anything else that's kind of, we'll call it a burning desire for those who are familiar with what that term is?
No, just to any chance anyone can have the opportunity to love someone just the way they are. Like, um, like the bottom is the top of if you're if you're at your worst and you're feeling like crap and ungrateful, like you have to have that to get to the top. So I don't know. I'm really big on just embracing the underdog. So
Yeah.
love the nerds. I'm gonna marry one.
Can't wait to meet him. So I appreciate there was a little bit of a call to action there, which I so appreciate. Love everyone, love everybody where they are, love people for who they are, where they are. In the context of this particular episode about the AIDS pandemic, is there anything, any call to action that for anybody listening to this podcast or watching the video? I can't imagine, if anybody, any audience member isn't touched by your story. So hopefully they're fired up and inspired to do something to help. What would you ask people to do beyond, which is incredibly powerful, love people where they are? I mean, that is an amazing call to action, but is there anything else that you would ask audience members to do after listening to this? So they shut off the podcast and they go do this. What would that be?
So I don't know how it works, but I do know when the new drugs came out, when I first started working, they were like $20,000 a month if you didn't have insurance. And then they were like $200 a pill. And so the more it worked, the more expensive it got. And so
Wow.
like I know there's so many people that don't have access to it. So I don't know how this works, but I have a suspicion that when there's profit, there's delays. When things are when drug companies are making money to for for us to be sick,
Yeah.
like I don't know how that works, but I know that like the right legislation can take care of that. So I don't know how it works other than getting involved in um like whatever it takes to push it along without having these delays in research and distribution based on what companies bottom line is. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of money in the AIDS epidemic, and so but I don't know how it works.
So
So
tell your Congress member, tell your senator that federal support resources
yeah,
for AIDS legislation is something that is important to you. That's a call to action people can do
yes,
is to take a stand, let their elected officials know that this is an important issue that needs financial resources so that everyone can get affordable access
yes,
to drugs that will keep them alive, right? I mean, this
right.
is right.
And there's more. Like, I'm a very proud American, a military family. Like I am very proud American, but we're one chunk of the globe. So like we have to help everyone. There's so many people that are not going to get the drugs. So we have so much resources. We should be sharing. That's what I'm saying. We should be
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah. I
Like
agree
I would
completely.
split my pill in half and send it to Africa if I had to, or
Right
wherever.
on. Well, we shouldn't have to ask people like you to do that. We should.
Yeah.
We are a resource wealthy nation,
Yeah.
and to the credit, frankly, of George W. Bush, right? I mean, he did, a couple decades ago when he was in office, lead an effort to do a pretty significant
Right. Right. Yeah.
package of support specifically to Africa. So, I mean, it can be done. There's
Yeah.
evidence, even by those amongst the conservative leaders of our nation, can see the need for kindness and compassion to help other nations. So there's a track record there of it getting done. So we need to keep pushing our legislators and elected officials to keep doing it and do more because there's more to
Yeah.
be done.
Yeah. It should always be on the docket.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
the queue.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the crux of that UNAIDS report is that if we're going to get to eradicating AIDS globally by 2030, the elected leaders of the world, the governments of the world, need to step up their promises. Not they need to follow through with their promises. Promises were made to work towards eradicating the disease by 2030, but it's we're not quite halfway there, and the promises are not being kept. So pushing our elected leaders around the world to uphold what they said they would do, and to put the resources and effort into eradicating this disease once and for all.
Beautiful.
So, all right, man. Well, I end every episode. Is there anything else you want to add before I get to the last questions? Is there any other calls to action? There are a few questions. Yes, a few more. Anything else you wanna any other call to actions or anything else you'd like to mention before I hit you with the last questions?
No, thank you. That's
okay. So each episode I end with asking 3 questions of the guest around the topic of hope. So hope isn't a strategy, right? But without hope, it's hard to get into action to go do the things you need to do. So hope is kind of a foundational prerequisite of doing something, of getting into action. And on these episodes on Story Sustain Us, and this one in particular, we're talking about a really hard subject. And thank you again so much for your honesty and vulnerability. So AIDS is hard, right? I mean, it's a difficult subject to talk about. So I want to end on a hopeful note. There's been a lot of hope and a lot of promise just in your story already, but I want to push you a little bit more to find out what you're hopeful about. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions, kind of just off the cuff, off top of your head, or what's in your heart. Don't think too long about the answer. Just give the answer. So, and I'm defining hope kind of the way folks who study it define it. And hope is defined as you can have a vision for the future and you feel like you have some agency to help that vision come true. Might not be easy. You might not get there, but you have a vision and you feel you can do something to help it happen. So 3 questions, Roy. First question is, what is your vision for a better future? It could be for you personally or professionally or for the world. What's your vision for a better future?
Living in the moment, nurturing the grass.
Tell me why.
Because I've had success in every area of my life, that I've practiced the principles of our program. And it doesn't sustain me. What sustains me is being barefoot in the grass. I drove around San Antonio with 4 jobs, making piles of money, thinking someday I'm going to pull over, take my shoes and socks up, and I never did. I ate in my car. And now in LA, I don't pass grass without stopping and taking my shoes and socks up. So it makes me a better person.
So last question then. So imagine we're living in a future where everybody's following that advice and we're all taking a moment to enjoy a moment of barefooted contact with the grass, with the earth. How does it make you feel? How does that future make you feel?
Hopeful, but yes, hopeful. There's a park near my house, and every evening it's unleashed. Dogs are off leash, running into the hills and living their best life. And I sit there with my trainer, barefoot, and watch all this. And then we do a little body weight workout. And then when they leave, when the sun sets, they take all their dogs. You can feel the ground smiling. I mean, smiling from the doggy love. And that's my higher power. That's what I feel. That's what I see when we're all sitting in the park, barefoot. So hope, yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, Roy, thank you, my friend. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I look forward to catching up with you again soon. But thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story. I'm incredibly grateful to know you as a friend, and I'm incredibly grateful that you were willing to share your very personal story on this program. So thank you, Roy.
You're welcome. I love you, and I'll send you my gratitude list tomorrow.
I love you too, man. You'll get my gratitude list as well. Take care, brother.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. That brings us to the end of another amazing episode of Stories Sustain Us. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I want to thank Roy Hudgens for sharing his incredible journey with us today. Roy's story of living with HIV/AIDS is not only powerful, but also deeply inspiring. Roy has given us a window into the immense challenges he and others faced, from the societal stigma and discrimination to the lack of medical knowledge and treatment options, particularly in the early years of the AIDS pandemic. And sadly, around the world, many still face that same stigma and discrimination. Roy's resilience and strength, bolstered by the support of the HIV/AIDS community and the compassion of healthcare professionals, are a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure and thrive. Hearing about the advancements in medication, from the early days of AZT to today's single-dose treatments, highlights just how far we've come. And yet, as Roy reminded us, there's still so much more to be done. Roy's emphasis on the holistic impact of living with HIV/AIDS, touching on mental and physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, that resonates deeply with me. His daily mindfulness practices and commitment to physical fitness are a powerful reminder that staying ahead of the disease requires attention to all aspects of our health. And that goes not just for those with HIV/AIDS, but let's face it, that's good advice for everyone. Now, I'm also particularly moved by Roy's call for continued awareness, support, and advocacy, and his reminder to embrace the present moment, finding joy in life's simple pleasures. Walking barefoot in the grass, laughing out loud, or for me, hugging trees while I'm hiking in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. These are the moments that bring true fulfillment, as he so beautifully put it. So I want to ask y'all to do me a favor. Go out when you're done listening to this, take your shoes off, socks off, go walk around barefoot in the grass for a little bit. Sometime soon, do that. And if you do, please message me. Please let me know you did it, because I want to pass on those messages to Roy to let him know that he inspired people to just to take a minute for themselves, to be present in a moment and walk barefoot in the grass in their neighborhood park, or wherever they may have grass, their front yard or backyard, or wherever they can get to the nearest bit of grass. Just go walk barefoot and enjoy the present moment for a minute. Let me know how you did it. Let me know how it made you feel. Let me know what it meant to you, so I can pass those messages back on to Roy, so he knows how he inspired people to just be present for just one moment, maybe. So thank you for doing that favor for me. I look forward to getting your messages. Now, before we go, I also want to touch just a bit on the purpose behind this episode. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, there is a UN Sustainable Development Goal to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Now, this includes a target to end the AIDS pandemic and other diseases by 2030. A couple months ago, I think it was in July, a report was released by UNAIDS highlighting that the global fight against AIDS is at a critical juncture. While ending the AIDS pandemic by 2030 is still possible, the world is currently off track. The report stresses the need for increased resources and protection of human rights to reduce new infections and ensure treatment for all. Without bold actions, millions more will need lifelong support. The report warns that the decisions made this year will determine if global targets are met and if the AIDS pandemic can truly be ended by 2030. So now is the time to contact your federal elected officials and ask them to continue supporting national and global HIV/AIDS efforts. I'll put links in the show notes for the UN Sustainable Development Goals, UNAIDS, and for the website for HIV/AIDS strategy in the United States. Please check out the information and offer your support where you can. Please join me one more time, if you would, in thanking Roy Hudgens for his courage, his advocacy, and his unwavering love for life. He not only shared his personal story, but also left us with a call to action, to fight for affordable access to medication and resources for those living with HIV/AIDS around the world. I'm grateful for Roy's time and his insights, and for reminding us of the power of love and acceptance for all individuals. Now, if you were inspired by this episode, please share it with your friends and family and subscribe, rate, and review Stories Sustain Us on your favorite podcast platform. Now, I got to ask you that at the end of every episode. It's kind of what podcasters do. So I do appreciate your support. Your engagement really does matter. And on the next episode of Stories Sustain Us next week, my guest will share stories about how public transportation plays a crucial role in shaping cities and connecting communities. She makes it clear that understanding the historical context of transportation infrastructure can provide insights into the development of cities, and that public transportation is essential for creating a more equitable and sustainable future for all. You're going to want to check it out on September 24, wherever you listen to podcasts, and at storiessustainus.com. It's a great conversation, so please don't miss it. Till next time, I'm Stephen Schauer. Please take care of yourself and each other. Take care.